Welcome. I'm the Parliament Raven. Greetings. Pull up a seat, pour yourself a cup of tea. My name's Jason Rodriguez, and I'm the Parliament Raven. And today's episode is called Strings and Scriptures, where physics meets faith. And this one's dedicated to one of the Parliament members, the Parliament Starling. This is for you. So I hope you enjoy. Today we're going to talk about where faith and science meet. And I always like talking about these subjects. Usually I do it live and in person rather than on a podcast, but I've had a request and I'm going to grant it today. So we're going to be exploring that fascinating intersection of faith and things. And I have a great quote from Dan Brown, even though I do not like his literature. It's based on very poor theology, but he has a great quote. And it goes, "Science and religion are not at odds. Science is simply too young to understand." Ha! I thought that was a great quote. So here's the core question. Can the deep mysteries of modern physics, like string theory, point us towards a deeper theological understanding? And if you know anything about the Parliament Raven, he totally thinks the answer is yes. But let's unravel this together anyways. And you can come to your own conclusions. All right, so let's start with what is string theory and why am I bringing it up? Let me give you a simple explanation. I'm going to look away for a minute so that I can read this. Imagine that instead of particles making everything, they are tiny vibrating strings. These strings are the building blocks of the universe, and their vibrations determine the properties of all matter. String theory's goal is a unifying fundamental force of nature, gravity, and quantum mechanics, and it's proposed of extra-dimensional and beyond for the four we experience. So here's a quote. "The beauty of string theory is that it is an attempt to reconcile the different forces of nature into a single framework. It's almost as if we're uncovering the mind of God." Brian Greene. So let's take a look at how this all works in collusion with, in harmony with, not in cacophony, but in harmony with the theological world and universe. Just as scientists try to uncover fundamental laws and structure of the universe, we know that Christianity teaches that God, the ultimate creator, has already established order in the cosmos. And we can see this with Fibonacci sequence. We can see this in how matter, DNA has information, and we know as a fact that information can't appear out of nowhere. Someone must design this information in order for it to exist. No sloppy, random soup bowls can create that. So as scientists uncover these fundamental laws and structures, Christians try to say, hey, look at this over here. It's kind of already here in front of you. For instance, the concept of logos in John says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and all things were made through the Word." Kind of sounds like string theory. Everything's connected to the Word. So you see where I'm going as we unravel the idea of string theory, which are these vibrating strings across the cosmos. If I had string or something stretchy, I'd be like, and I'm showing you that. For those of you who are watching and those of you who are listening, I don't have anything like that, but I would like to. That would have been kind of cool, of showing all these little strings that attach to everything and are vibrating. The concept of time in the fifth dimension, you can see that in the film Donnie Darko, is that string theory is in every second. If we were to see us in that next dimension, I think it's the fifth dimension, you would see a line of yourself. It would just be like this long blurry line. In Donnie Darko, it's like this tube coming out of Donnie Darko. And that's connected to each moment, and that from the past to the future can all be seen in that dimension because of string theory, because you're all connected. We can also talk about quantum entanglement, right? So String theory is kind of part of that, right? You're entangling two. That means connecting two with a string. That means if I cut a quantum entangled sphere and one I spin one the other way and one's going to spin with it, right? That's entanglement. It means it's connected. The idea of teleportation is quantum entangling you here in another place and destroying part and having the matter, because matter can't be destroyed, reappear at another place. There's a lot of ethics. We can talk about that, but we're not in that mind here for this podcast. We're talking about the relation between string theory and theology. So we know in theology, the theological world, that we're looking for concepts of wonder and connection to something that we fully do not understand and we fully cannot comprehend. We have no way of measuring it. And just because we can't measure it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Same thing with strings. We're in the same realm. Science is, as according to Dan Brown, what was it? Science is too young to understand. It's just catching up. In seminary, we would say that where theology is king, science is queen, and they rule hand in hand over the rest of the scholastic universe. So let's bridge the gap, right? So both string theory and Christianity deal with unseen reality, right? A string possesses that extra dimensional of energy in states that we can't see, and Christianity talks about God in a dimension. Wow, man, there's so many similarities in realms that we cannot perceive or see. Who do I quote here? Do I quote Ephesians 6:12? You could go there for yourself. Let's do Augustine. I'm not a big fan, but all truth is God, and truth wherever it is found. Oh, he agrees with Justin Martyr. So knowing that there is no argument here, right? String theory is really not arguing with or about. And actually there's quite a few people in the physics realm who've went from being atheist to being agnostic, and some who actually fully became Christian. And I find it interesting that as we start to continually unravel the mysteries of physics, we come to this understanding that there is greater, there is more. For instance, science thought that once we have broken down the atom, we're going to show that God doesn't exist, and where there's nothing more. And then we break down the atom and we find quarks, and quarks don't behave the way other things behave. And then as we break things down and we keep going, we're learning that physics, for the way we understand it, don't exist the smaller things get, and continually proves of things of wonder in beyond our understanding, which is, that continues that connection. One of the greatest scientific creators of all time, George Washington Carver, said he would go and pray about things and it would be revealed in his discovery. So many interesting stories out there. Let's continue about the potential of theology and physics working together, like multiple dimensionality, right? We can talk about multiple dimensionality, which is in string theory. Hold on, tea break. Tea break. All right. Continue on. Multiple dimensional theory. We call them the heavenlies. They call them multiple dimensions. In Hebrew, I'm going to say mythology because it's not agreed upon in all Hebrew. There is 7 heavens. Some say 10, some say 12. These are dimensions that are beyond our line of sight. They're in the spiritual realm. We cannot conceive them. The spiritual realm is overlays, right? So if we're going to be talking about this in a theological sense, they exist in the same space at the same time, but they can interact with one can interact with the other, and vice versa, depending on who you talk to, right? And we can talk about spiritual gifts and perception about that, but that'll be a completely different podcast. But let's move on to, that's a cool topic, but let's move on. Creation through vibration, right? This is the discussion of string theory, that creation is done through vibration. God said, let there be light, and there was light. And that resonates with the idea that something was said or that vibrations occurred and things were created. It's the same thing with the Big Bang, right? We talk about the Big Bang. Big Bang theory comes into play, but you can't have a Big Bang without somebody banging or creating that Big Bang. So it was a joke originally created by a Christian, and adopted by science, and then you forget the first half of the theory. So, immaterial foundations, both science and theology hint at a deeper immaterial reality beneath the physical world. Tesla would call it aether, a countless energy holding the universe together that we have no way of scientifically able to establish. He would also say that there is ways to derive energy today in the world of science that is ignored. Fringe science, as they call it. It is called zero-point energy. We won't be talking about that. That is for a completely different series called the Omega Files. We might one day get there. I might one day produce it. Who knows? Let's continue on. The order of mystery. Both string theory and theology deal with that a mystery of the universe, and that there's a specific order to it. String theory, the unknown properties of higher dimensions and forces, and of course Christianity talks about the mysteries of God and creation and the providence, basically higher and unknown forces, right? So we do have some similarities. You can see why some of these physics professors and doctors started to say, hey, wait a minute, there's some similarities between this theology and this concept of string theory and how creation is the universe. And they seem to be intermingling and working hand to hand. And, oh, well, maybe there is something to this, right? There are points of tension or misuses that can happen in both things. Acknowledging that you can, okay, so this is for my realm because I'm a theologian ultimately and just a casual physics consumer. But because of that, theology can sometimes can try to over spiritualize science rather than looking at it from a logical perspective. We can sometimes over emotionalize and try to make everything try to fit it into the box, when even in theology we have to acknowledge there's mysteries that we don't understand and we cannot explain or connect. Carl Sagan says science is not compatible with spirituality, and it is a profound source of spirituality, which is weird, right? You got those. Carl Sagan was diametrically opposed to it, and yet he says there's spirituality found within science. I'm not a big fan of Sagan, but the concept of that one links to the other is more evidence, if you could say that there's more to this. There's more to this mystery on both sides than what we're seeing. Albert Einstein says science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind. Albert Einstein was a Jewish man. So, right, he definitely believed, and he's the guy who helped split the atom bomb. He discovered E equals mc squared. For those of you who don't know, energy equals mass times the coefficient of light squared, which gives us the speed of light. But if the speed of light is breaking down, then physics is topsy-turvy. And guess what? Speed of light, we discovered, is not as constant as we thought. So it has been addressed already in physics, but you can go down that rabbit hole. I'm sure there's videos somewhere. All right. Harmonious vision. String theory is a source of awe. There's elegance and beauty to the concept of these strings connecting things. And of course, when you connect it to theology, these strings connected to somebody who is very interested and involved in a creation that he has created, a universe that is constantly moving and changing, microly evolving to adapt to what comes and goes in the universe as we put our presence upon it, right? Ooh, I have more quotes. Another one. The more I study science, the more I believe in God. Albert Einstein, right? I got to respect Einstein for continually throwing that out in constant interviews and such. Einstein was very much and a challenge to some of my viewers who don't believe, and that's fine. You don't have to believe, but I like talking about both and intermingling both. But going out there and finding out how many of the greatest inventions were invented by people who had a deep faith in God. And I'm talking about my God, of course, Yahweh, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, any of those forms, and the impact that they've had upon the world, whether it be from saving millions of lives. Of course, I'm going to mention John Washington Carver, or to the guy who created the MRI scanner, to Albert Einstein here, who created a force, or at least didn't create, but discovered the force of clean energy, right? Nuclear energy is clean. efficient energy. Yes, there's waste at the end, but we've gotten better and better at handling that and using that waste for other things. All right, so some closing thoughts and reflections. So I know that some of your listeners, some of you believe, some of you don't believe, but string theory is not the only theory. I only bring up string theory because it's a fun theory, right? It's these strings attached to everything, and its ability to progress us in the sense of quantum entanglement, quantum theory. And it's not a theory. Everybody doesn't buy into that. There's more theories we could go into. There's more things we could try to look at from theological concepts and theological connections. Even we could unravel, but I'm not going to. Evolution. You want to see Kent Hovind for that. But still, reflecting on what we're learning through science and reflecting on learning through spirituality helps us grow mentally, creatively, and gives us on wonder in a universe that we think we've explained everything when we have AI or Google or media or people saying they know all this and showing videos. Even I just giving you a snippet of connection of string theory and theology. There's whole books on people trying to explain those connections. But I just think it's fun. I'm just dipping our toe in a very deep pool. Okay, so let me give you some questions. I have them written down here. What if the universe is more connected than we thought? Could string theory give us a glimpse of the intricacy of a grander design, of God's design, that is woven into creation? The universe, here's another quote, the universe is not only stranger than we imagine, it is stranger than we can imagine, right? And that's JBS Haldane. And and here's my favorite scripture, and great that it applies today. It's Matthew 7:7. Seek and you shall find, right? Another scripture I love that I'm going to add to this is, it is for kings to uncover the mysteries of God. And you who are watching are definitely kings and queens. All right, so the challenge, find something you enjoy in the science world and relate it to your journey, or just dig deeper and see what kooky and amazing things are going on in that realm. I know that I continue to look and listen to things in physics. I'm right now watching tentatively what's going on in fission and fission generators and hydrogen, using hydrogen to propel our cars rather than battery consumption. And that's a whole nother topic that I'll discuss in person or in maybe a live chat rather than on a podcast. But that's the challenge. Go seek a mystery and dig deeper into something that you enjoy that's scientific. And until next time, pour yourself another glass of tea, and I'll see you later. Like, subscribe, leave a good comment. Thanks for visiting the Parliament. If you want to know about Gravitas coaching, please visit gravitas.co. It's also where we host the Parliament. Join the conversation on Facebook at the Parliament Raven Podcast. Last but not least, the intro and outro music credits. Intro music by Russ Budgeon and outro music by Sarnav Aravistov.